Hi, my name's Leo and I'm a boat builder and a sailor, and I'm on a mission to rebuild and restore this 110-year-old classic sailing yacht, Tally-Ho. In this video we're going to be putting more planks on the boat, and we're going to be talking about various different aspects of that process which we haven't covered before. Now we also want to reintroduce the members of the crew here, the guys and girls that are helping out on site working on the boat, because a lot of them have been here for quite a while and will be for quite a while longer, so I think it would be good to get to know them just a little bit better. Now, as you guys know, Pete is an independent professional shipwright, and we're going to be really catching up with Pete properly, I think, in another episode. But this week I want to really get to know the other guys a little bit. We have Rosie, we have Rowan, we have Matt, we have David, and we have just recently Matt's brother Danny. And all of them, they're not all here at the same time. They're kind of taking turns to have time off and to work on the boat and so on. But the bronze work beforehand and the riveting of the planks now is quite labour intensive. So on any given day, we may have 3 or 4 people here. Now I want to talk about fastenings. We are riveting the planks to the frames using copper rivets, and we are that noise is Poncho, meaning that she's bored of being inside and she wants to come and hang out here. Now, as I was saying, to peen over the inside of a copper rivet, you need some kind of washer to peen that material over to increase the surface area of it. And you can use a flat washer or a rove. A rove is kind of like a conical flat washer. They're normally used in smaller boats with square rivets, but we're using round rivets, and although we could have used a flat washer, a better solution is to use a thing called a clench ring, which is kind of like a washer with a triangle section to it, so that it actually creates a countersink on the inside for the copper to flare out into. And because it's flaring out rather than going over the hard corner of a washer, that actually makes a stronger connection, and it's quicker and easier to peen that head as well, and it also looks nicer, which is just a bonus really. Now, unfortunately, clench rings are very unusual and specialised. I couldn't find any to purchase anywhere, so we were actually considering casting them, and we did actually cast a few samples. It was a bit of an experiment really to see how long it would take to make the 4,000 or so that we need to fasten the whole boat. The product is really nice, but I decided it wasn't really something that I could afford the time or the money to cast all of these, because it would take a while. So I was looking for other solutions, and actually I got really lucky, because I got in touch with someone who had previously offered some machining help, and it turns out that this person's father owns a machine called a Citizen Swiss, which is a CNC lathe. It's highly specialized, and it's ideal for machining large quantities of small simple parts like this. So we only started speaking about a week ago, and already he sent me a batch of 500 clench rings made in copper, and the machine is still working, continuing to make the rest. Wow, that is a bag of very precisely machined clench rings. They look amazing. They'll keep us busy for a few days. Perfect. What do you think of that? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what you're supposed to do with that. You can't eat it. Here, I'll have it back. Now this is really awesome. So big thanks to Kyle Smith and his dad, Roger Smith. And his dad's company is called R.D. Smith Manufacturing. So look them up if you want to get something like this machined. Good job, David.
So efficient.
Such quick reactions.
I've been, this is like my third plank now, so, you know.
I'm Danny and I am Matt's little brother. I'm pretty happy to be working on the tally ho, and in the past I've done a lot of kind of ranch carpentry, which isn't actually carpentry. It's pretty funny working with my brother. We've done work together before, but it's all been demolition, which is a lot more straightforward, but he's actually he teaches me a lot, which is really nice, and we just have fun together.
Got any dirt you can spill on that?
He's an extremely good violinist. That's not really dirt. Yeah. Wow. I actually really like peening the rivets, especially as we've gotten better at bucking the rivets. Like having a really stable rivet head and just getting the pattern down and figuring out how to be efficient and get really good rivet heads is super satisfying. And just to know that they're like a very crucial part of the boat. And yeah, being consistent and detail oriented with that is pretty fun, honestly. And it's just like really nice to get a good looking rivet head.
Danny said I was a violin player?
Yeah.
I played violin when I was like really young. I couldn't play a note on it now, but
Really?
yeah, that's very nice of him. My name's Matt. I was living in Seattle before I came out to Squim to work on Tally Ho. Before I came here, I was doing a bunch of residential carpentry and some furniture building. I love the peninsula. The peninsula is my favorite place on earth. I like to camp a lot here, and the mountains are pretty amazing, and the combination of the mountains and the ocean are really cool. Which is why I got my brother to come hang out with me on the boat. Secretly, just so we can camp a bunch.
Now it feels very, very wrong to do this, but I'm going to have to cut this very long board in half to make two shorter boards out of it. And I'm sure boat builders and carpenters everywhere will understand when I say it's almost painful to do that to a lovely, long, clear board like this. But the fact is, most of our stock is this long. It's very long, very wide boards. It's really, really good quality stuff, so we're very lucky to have it. And I wanted long, wide boards to give us the most versatility, which we have. And then when we're actually selecting boards to cut into planks, a lot of that process is working out the most efficient way to do so. So our short planks, they're going to have to come out of long boards, and so it's a case of selecting the boards which are long enough in the right lengths to be able to get two sets of shorter planks out of them, and then the other longer boards we do use for longer planks and so on. We are able to get several planks out of most of these boards. This one I'll get at least 4 planks out of. Slightly shorter ones I might even get 6 out of it though, and some of the other ones I've been able to get 3 long planks out of, at least 2 in most cases.
This is my beautiful 1994 Mazda B3000, which is a Mazda Ford kind of mix-up, which was recently stranded in this driveway for a couple days until I got it towed to an auto shop, found out that the head gasket had blown and I couldn't afford it, unfortunately. And after a couple days of contemplating just abandoning the vehicle, these two came to the rescue and it's being repaired.
So we're working on this engine, and I brought my better looking half over here to help out on this project. It's my twin brother Daniel. Well, Leo called for some advice about one of his volunteers on the boat, that his head gasket had blown on his truck. And I've worked for a Ford dealership for 25 plus years, and so I know these engines pretty well. So I decided to just instead of giving advice, I thought I'd just come up and do the work myself on this nice afternoon and just take care of it and help his helpers out in the process. You got to remember what you're doing is actually affecting a lot of people around the world in a positive way, even though that's not at all your goal. Yeah. I mean, you ended up here because of this too.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's
brings a lot of people.
This is a way bigger thing than just tally-ho.
Yeah.
That's good. I'm just gonna make sure I get them before I.
So we need that. Work on the head or the intake.
The update is it all went really smoothly. It didn't take very long, and I'm back at the shop. So I can go to work, I can drive around, and I'm very, very grateful for David and Daniel. They helped out a ton, and yeah, I'm really grateful and excited.
Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about bucking or dollying, which is of course just the process of supporting the head of a rivet on the outside of the boat while somebody on the inside of the boat hits it with a hammer, peens it over to make another head on the inside, and that dollying or bucking prevents the rivet from slipping back out of its hole. Now, when we first started planking, we were bucking in the most traditional and low-tech way possible, which is literally just to take the bucking iron, so this has lead in it, so it's quite heavy, and just bodily support it with your body weight against the head of the rivet. So that works pretty well, and to be honest, I'm a fan of starting things out using the simplest method, just really to get a good understanding of all the forces involved and what's needed from the tool and so on. So this is definitely the most simple method. It is quite difficult. This is heavy, and after holding it up for a long time, it becomes quite painful. So we started looking for alternative methods. The first things we did was to make another bucking iron, so we could use two at once. But this one had handles on it, which made it a little easier to hold in certain places. And then we also made one which was much smaller for use where there was an obstruction and we couldn't use the long one. This one could get in around clamps as well, because this iron is on, the pin is right on this edge. So that was useful in some areas, but it was still a difficult tiring job, and we were also finding that occasionally the rivets were slipping and they had to be knocked back in. So we quite quickly started looking for an easier and more efficient solution. Now, the first idea was to use a lever, and after experimenting a bit with some different levers, we came up with this, which is a sort of gate box that goes around the frame to give you something to lever against, and this is adjustable. And so this lever then slips inside that, and then so the box is here, and then the person can lean back on this bar, and then they're putting a huge amount of pressure on this pin, which is going onto the head of the rivet. Some lead there as well, just to absorb some of that shock. And this actually worked very well. We were finding it was slipping a lot less than when we were bucking by hand, and it was easier physically for the person to do. But it took a little bit of time to set up the gate on each frame. After that, I started thinking about clamps. Now, I had used clamps on some of the other rivets, and we did actually experiment with clamps right at the beginning of the planking, but at that point I was finding that they were just slipping a lot, and actually it seemed like they were just more trouble than it was worth. But I came back to the idea and I modified the clamp quite a bit. I changed the shape and the size of the jaws, and most importantly just welded this together so that the arm was static and couldn't be moved. And of course I could have just used a C-clamp for that, but this one works pretty well and it's got a nice wide jaw. And actually now with the modifications, these clamps are working really well. And the nice thing about them, of course, is that the person inside the boat can set them up themselves. So it really turns a two-person job into a one-person job, which is of course a lot more efficient. And we're also finding that the rivet was slipping less. So it's more efficient and more effective. So this is now our go-to preferred bucking tool. But it doesn't work in all cases, depending on the position of the frame and the angles and the obstructions and so on. Sometimes you can't use a clamp. So the guys are actually still using all of these tools, just choosing the one which is going to work best in the specific situation. But the clamps especially, and also the guys getting more skilled at riveting, has really sped up the process, and the riveting is going a lot faster. It's not a bottleneck anymore. Now another tool which has really sped up the process is this. Now these are bolt cutters, but they are end cutters, so they are actually much easier to cut the rivets with because you can get in without having the frames and so on in the way. And I've also added a gauge to these, so I just welded a small piece of metal on the end which sits against the clench ring, and so that just automatically cuts off then the rivet at exactly the right length. So that saves a lot of time. Now I know a lot of people have been suggesting that we use an air hammer for peening, for driving and so on, and in fact people have been suggesting that to me for years. There are some good reasons why I don't use an air hammer most of the time and why we're not using an air hammer now. For the peening it might be possible, it might help, but it's a bit more complicated. There's some disadvantages and advantages, and we're aware of the possibility, but for now we're sticking with our manual hammering, which works great, doesn't take too long, and being good with a hammer is actually a good skill to practice, to develop, and all the guys I think are going to have arms like Popeye by the time we're finished planking.
Why are you holding that chicken?
Well, I was just standing here and then Leo handed it to me. My name's Rowan, and I was here about a year ago. In that time, I went and built a sauna. I drove around the country in my van, and in my free time, I've been working on a laser show. I really like electronic music and light and projection art, and I wanted to try to combine all three of those. The goal of the project is to take sound and use it to generate shapes on a wall in light. Over the last few weeks, I've been doing a lot of hammering, a lot of riveting, a lot of planking. During the last couple of days, Pete and I have been fastening the knees to the beam shelf and the frames. First, we measured the holes that needed bolts. Then we cut and peened over heads on bolts, and then we threaded those bolts, and then we put them in the holes, and then we put washers and nuts on them.
My name is Rosie. I think I can do it. Nope, I can't do it. Hi. As you might know, my name is Rosie, and I've been here for about 4 or 5 months at this point. And so far, I am enjoying life on the peninsula. It's extremely beautiful up here, and I've spent a fair amount of time exploring the mountains and hiking around on Forest Service trails. Yeah, I have a ever-growing list of projects that I've been working on. I had a set of stools that I was making at my old job that I finished since I got here. I think they turned out pretty well. I just made a set of chisel handles for my dad for Christmas, but that's a secret, so maybe not anymore. So as we've been planking and riveting, I've been working on making the butt blocks, which mostly consists of taking some measurements on how the butt block fits against the planks. And then I take those measurements and I transfer them onto a piece of purple heart, shape it with a planer, and then bring it back into the boat and fit it and make final adjustments to the block plane, and then put the finishing touches on and rivet it in. One important part of making butt blocks is making sure that the top of them isn't level, so that water, if it comes in, won't sit on top of them but will flow off. It's not practical to make it slope inboard, so instead it has to slope either fore or aft.
So we want to take that clamp off, but I'm going to be... Now I know you guys want to know what Pete is doing, and normally I would just ask Pete what he's doing, but we're having a little bit of time off for Christmas this year, and it's kind of messed up my filming schedule a little bit. So unfortunately Pete has escaped before I could corner him and interrogate him as I usually do. So just this once, I'm going to have to explain what Pete has been doing. So Pete has been fastening the lower arms of the hanging knees onto the frames. And this is something that we didn't do when we first installed the hanging knees, because at that point we weren't actually sure how we were going to be fastening them. We were thinking about riveting them through the planks and the frames with the planking rivets, which could have worked well, because there'd be quite a few rivets in there, but they would be copper rivets and not as strong as bronze bolts. And in the end, we just decided that it'd be better to go for the added strength of the larger, stronger fastenings. So Pete's been making bronze bolts, which are fastening the hanging knees to the frames. They have a hand-peened head on the inside, and then on the outside there's a counterbore and a washer and nut. Of course, this all has to happen before the planks cover up the outside of the frames, which is why it's being done now. And then when the planks go on, they will be riveted where they can be, and then where the bolts or the hanging knee itself is in the way of the rivets, they'll just get screws in those places, which is no problem at all. Now you'll notice that this hanging knee does not have bolts all the way down, it just has one in the bottom, and that is also the case with the next two and the same three on the other side of the boat. And that's because these are in the same position as the chain plates will be on the outside of the boat. So the chain plates are strips of metal that fasten to the outside of the planking, and they hold the standing rigging which supports the mast. And those chain plates will be bolted through the planks, through the frames, and through the hanging knees to make them really strong and secure. So we're not putting any bolts in here now because we need that space for the chain plate bolts. Now Rowan and Danny have been helping Pete a little bit with this, helping to make and drive some of the bolts. Pete has been drilling all the holes through the knees, which takes a while. But they're looking really good. And of course, once they're fastened, then we can trim the felt paper, which was bedding these onto the frames. So that's already been trimmed on and cleaned up on this one. David's been doing that. He's been doing that on the floors as well. We didn't want to do that before there were some fastenings in, just in case those bronze pieces could move a tiny bit. So that's just a little job, but it's nice because it makes everything look a little bit more finished in here.
Hi there, I'm David. I've been here for about 4.5 months working on Tally Ho. Previously to coming here, I was doing a lot of cooking in San Francisco and kind of just filling the voids with art where I could, doing a lot of painting or ceramics. I don't really do anything else. Play a lot of video games, but Tally Ho is definitely for the better taken over my video game habits. I also do like finished cabinetry installations and stuff around the country. So I've been helping out in the Bay Area. I've been helping out up here since I've been here, in like Seattle. But it's like a really nice company to work for because it kind of lets me work wherever I go. So it's been really nice being able to have that as well and help me afford to stay up here and keep working on the project.
Great job, Danny.
Thanks.
Yeah, Donnie. Great job. Yeah, great job, Danny.
Wow. Receiving a lot of validation.
Good job, Danny!
Come on, Matt.
Sorry.
You know, this is the one that I'm gonna really mess up now, right?
No, it's gonna be perfect.
Perfect. Yeah, you think I'm kidding.
Oh, look at that. Right out the side.
That's
good.
the last one.
Well, how come you're using such a tiny hammer?
It was the first one I found, okay? Well, you can't fault me for trying to be quick and just grabbing a hammer. I'm gonna walk all the way inside and get a better hammer.
What are you doing there, Rosie?
I'm taking the bevels for the next plank up.
Cool, what does that involve?
That involves taking the angle between the top of this plank and this frame with a bevel gauge and marking it in a notebook, and then also taking note of how curved the frame is up here. And then when I'm done with that, I'll give the notebook to Leo and he'll use that information to cut out the next plank.
woodworker. Standing around.
Oh, hey, bud.
This is like Noah's Ark. It's just the start.
We're missing one chicken.
Yeah.
What?
And the rest of the animals.
Well, the planking is going very well, I feel. As you guys have seen, it's not a quick process, it's more of a marathon than a sprint. But we're doing well. We've got 31 planks on the boat now, out of an approximate total of, I think, 106, because there's 28 strakes on either side, and most of those contain 2 planks. So we're nearly a third of the way there, but actually I think we're probably more than a third of the way through the process, because a lot of the planks that we've done already will have been the ones that take longer, and in general we're always speeding up our processes, hopefully. The fastening of the planks has certainly got a lot quicker, partly down to developing our bucking techniques and partly due to the increasing skill of the people doing the fastening. They're doing a great job, and now really the main thing that's holding us up is just all the little jobs that come up day to day and pull myself and Pete off of planking, off of actually making planks in order to do something else. And it is really exciting for me to see these planks going on the boat every day. She looks more and more like a boat, which is great. And it's going to be, quite a milestone when the hull is planked up and, could conceivably float. So yeah, I'm feeling great about it, and I'm feeling very, very grateful because of course none of this would be possible without the incredibly kind and generous support of people like you watching these videos, because this project is funded by the kindness of people watching these videos on YouTube, which blows me away every time I think of it. So I'm so grateful. Thank you. And a Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays and Solstice, anything else that you celebrate at this time of year, to all you guys out there from everyone here. Have a great week, and we will see you next year.